Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Roberts review. Today, we're going to be talking about Agent Carter, Season 1. Agent Carter Season 1 came out in 2015, and this show was supposed to be in addition to the MCU, like the other shows. But this one in particular was supposed to be almost a behind the scenes into the MCU, where we can see some really cool stuff happen that honestly I didn't even realize because they did a really bad job with it. I'm really disappointed in this show for many reasons, even more so right now than I was 20 minutes ago. I was doing some light research because I hadn't seen this show in like a month and a half or something like that, and I wanted to make sure that I was correct in saying what I'm saying. And there's stuff that I completely missed, and I don't think it's my fault. I think that the writing and the directing of this show just wasn't quite together. They had so many storylines that they wanted to follow, and I think they just couldn't pick one that they wanted to follow and make that a reality. There's only 2 seasons of the show, and I think that they might have been okay if they added a third and really just focused on each individual storyline because there's so many cool things that add into the MCU from this that like I just didn't even pick up on. And as an MCU fan, I mean, I should have picked up on these. And it's just because they're only mentioned for like half a second, and it's supposed to have this worldly impact, and it just doesn't because they don't do it well. They don't emphasize it enough. There's no build up to it. It's just there. That was a lot of opinion. All right. So first, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the first season of the show, and then I'm going to talk about the acting, and then I'm going to talk about what I thought about it. All right. All right. Let's get right into it. So essentially, what happens is this follows Captain America, the First Avenger, which I understand can be confusing because this this show came out in the middle of Phase Two when it actually takes place in Phase One. That's a thing with Marvel is like to jump around in timelines, which I'm okay with because I'm okay with understanding those kind of things, and it's cool because then we can see some really cool stuff from the past that show up in the future, which is great. They didn't do a very good job with this show in particular, but that's okay. And essentially, it takes place right after Captain America, the first Avenger, and so Captain America has died, and it follows Peggy Carter, who was the love interest for Steve Rogers in that movie, and they just don't do a good job. And here's why. So no, I can't say that yet. I have to finish. So what he does, what happens in this is that it also follows Howard Stark, and Howard Stark is Tony Stark's father, who was also like a weapons manufacturer, which is how Tony got the building and all that stuff. He inherited it all from his father. So what happens is some bad guys get their hands on Stark technology, which, to be fair, is exactly what happens in Iron Man 1. So I think he should have learned about that at some point. And so Howard has to go on the run, and he asks Peggy Carter to basically clear his name, and so she, with the help of Edwin Jarvis, who is the butler to Howard Stark, essentially, um, try to do that. And then they find out that there's this whole big thing with a Black Widow, which I'll talk about later, and with Leviathan, who is both a person and an organization. And it's quite confusing, if I'm honest with you. They really should have taken a step back and maybe reanalyzed what they were really trying to do with the show, because it can be its own standalone thing. That's totally fine. But if you really want it to fit in the universe, you have to try less hard, okay? Because a lot of the movies they connect in ways that aren't they're subtle, like they just like they happen. And you're like, oh, that was kind of cool. That relates back to the first Avenger or whatever. But this is like they're like shoving it in your face for like the important parts, and then there are so many cool things that they could have shoved in my face that I've liked, and instead they were like, nah, we're just gonna mention it and like not tell you much about it. Anyway, um, there's a lot of plot holes in this show. There's so many, and I don't want to talk about it because I just don't care enough to talk about it. It's really really rough. The first season was very very rough. There were, however, some good things. I didn't write down my rating yet. I really should do that. What am I gonna rate this? Okay. So there's a lot of really good things in this show, and those are just purely the acting. The plot is really kind of boring. And I probably should have mentioned Dominic Cooper. I'll write that down. So I feel like the issue that I'm having is that I like watching shows with strong actors and really good actors, but they have to have a plot to play with because it is so boring. You can put, Bill Murray and Tom Hanks and Robert Downey Jr. in a room and like it still wouldn't necessarily be very interesting because there's no plot. And that's pretty much what they did. They were like, oh, well, we have Haley Atwell still, and she signed on to do a show, so why not just have her do a show real quick, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And it didn't work for them. They really should have had a stronger plan. I don't know if they had a plan to begin with, and they just were just like rolling with it. And they wrote episode by episode and saw how that went. They really should have focused more on how to make a good story that also relates back to the MCU in a way that the MCU fans are going to enjoy and they're going to go crazy about. Which I think that season 2 was better in my opinion. We'll talk about that probably in like 3 weeks. Um, I didn't I didn't really enjoy season 2 either. If I'm honest with you, I enjoyed some parts of it. It is not by far the worst show that Marvel's put out, but not my favorite. But let's talk about the good parts. Let's talk about the acting. All right, let's do it. Haley Atwell as Peggy Carter. First of all, she's gorgeous. I mean, wow. And second of all, I mean, she was great in Captain America. There's no doubting that that she was phenomenal as a badass female character who can kick ass and is super smart. And I think that they did a really good job translating that into this show because we pick up on her and she's depressed. Her you know love interest just died, which it bothers me how fast she moves on from that because like that she's sad and stuff, but when you're watching the show, it really pisses me off when she even slightly mentions that she might want to be with another person. Like it almost offends me. I'm like, uh, Captain America, But I mean, I understand that Captain America was dead at the point, but whatever. Anyway, she did phenomenal. There's not a lot of fight sequences, but she was very good in those. I don't think she had a stunt double. She might have had one stunt double to do menial things, but I think that for the most part she did a lot of it. To be fair, a lot of it has to do with guns, which never bring guns to a superhero fight. It's just boring. Anyway, wonderful job to Miss Atwell. James D'Arcy as Edwin Jarvis stole the show. Wow, I would love to have just a Jarvis show and it starred James D'Arcy. That would be really cool. I really, really, really liked this character. Mainly because it really does translate so well into the MCU because we get to see Jarvis. I guess we get to hear Jarvis as the AI that Tony Stark uses for the most part. But then we also get to see him in Endgame, and I think it is James D'Arcy in Endgame that plays Edwin Jarvis as well in that. And it really is quite wonderful. He is so good. He's so funny. I was like, I did not expect him to be funny because if you look at anything he's played, he doesn't really play comedies very much. But he is hilarious in this show. Everything he says just gets me. And then in season 2, he's so dramatic and also funny. I mean, they really knew what they were doing with this character, and props to them for knowing what they were doing because what a wonderful, fantastic character. I couldn't get enough. That's the only reason why I am a little sad I don't get an Agent Carter season 3. I would have not enjoyed watching it, but if it had more Edwin, I would have been down. Enver Jokaj. It's hard to pronounce. It's Gjokaj. It's I don't know, but anyway, he plays Daniel Sousa, who is my second favorite character. Believe it or not, Peggy Carter is not my favorite character in this show, which is depressing because you would think that she would be, but it has nothing to do with the fact that she's like a strong female character. For anyone who is wondering, I just didn't like the way that they used her. They could have used her in a more stronger sense. And honestly, the show is a little political in the fact that they do bring up the fact that because she's a girl, she's segregated and like they don't let her do stuff. They don't trust her as a real agent, which is great. I mean, we need a little bit more awareness of that. but I think that they wasted a lot of this show on that. It was just, I understand that it's a problem and it needs to be addressed, and this is kind of the place to do that. But you can't do it for 6 episodes and then have 2 episodes that are boring. You really need to make it faster. We can have an episode or two of that and then really just push on our own, and I would have been happier. Anyway, Sousa is another agent that works at the SSR, which I didn't mention, I don't think, which is the uh, Strategic Security Reserve. That doesn't sound right. Secure Reserve? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It was basically Shield before Shield existed. Um, so that was nice to see that we have to see a little bit of the SSR. The issue being, however, that we didn't get a lot of the agents of the SSR, which to be fair, it's called Agent Carter, not agents of SSR. But I do think that Daniel Sousa was a great character, and I really enjoyed his character. I enjoy it even more, I think, in season 2 because he gets more fine tuned. In this one, you never really know if he's rooting for Peggy Carter or if he's rooting for the person that's running the SSR, but you get the feeling that he really does like Peggy in a way that I'm uncomfortable with because she needs to be with Captain America, but whatever. Um, he did a really good job, and we see him actually in the Avengers. He plays a cop in the Avengers, which is kind of a problem because I mean he's only there. He has like 2 lines in the whole movie, and we don't really see him for very often. But for those who are diehard fans like me, it can be a little distracting every time I watch the Avengers, which is pretty often. I watch the Avengers like once a month. Um, the issue comes down to like, oh hi, there's Sousa, um, which, I mean, technically they could do something with that if they really wanted to. They won't, but they could. And I've heard that he is in Agents of Shield season 7, which is a slight spoiler for me, but I am excited. I am on season 5 right now, and it's blowing my mind. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about it. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever watched in my life. I'm having so much fun with it. You should go watch Agents of Shield if you haven't already. It's on Netflix, and the first season's kind of okay, and the rest of them are fantastic. So really get through that first season and do it. Watch them. Watch all of this stuff. I mean, it's really just do it. Anyway, Bridget Regan as Dottie Underwood, who is a Black Widow. So, for those of you who are like, but Black Widow is the Scarlett Johansson. No, false. Scarlett Johansson is a Black Widow. The Black Widows, which are, there's many of them, are Russian girls that were raised in basically an orphanage and were trained to be spies. Scarlett Johansson's character, Natasha Romanoff, just happens to be the most popular one and happens to be the only good one, really. But Dottie Underwood was a Black Widow, and she comes up and she does all this stuff, and it's bad stuff. It's hard to really pinpoint exactly what she does because it really doesn't matter over the course of the show. But I figured I'd bring that up because it might scare some of you guys into being like, there are more Black Widows. Yes, there are. And also, I just think that it's important to think about the fact that all these things connect to the MCU in a way that just kind of blows my mind. In a way that also just it bothers me to no end that they didn't spend more time explaining these things, because people that like the MCU can watch this and still not understand that like half of this stuff really is important to the MCU, and it was just a bad idea in my opinion to focus on just Peggy Carter when they could have focused on a lot of really cool stuff with villains and stuff. There's even a reference to the Legend of the Ten Rings, which blows my mind. I'm like they knew that early on they were going to do something with that, and they didn't capitalize on it. I mean, whatever. I'm gonna stop talking about it. Dominic Cooper, as Howard Stark. I didn't actually write him down here. I don't know why I forgot, but he was technically listed as a special guest star on every show, every episode that he was in. I think he was in maybe 4 of the episodes. And he's a special guest star because he's playing Howard Stark, and that's really it. I mean, he was in Captain America, but so was Haley Atwell. So I feel like he might not have been labeled as a guest star, but whatever. He was fantastic. I don't disagree with the fact that he's fantastic. He's very good at Howard Stark. I really would. I mean, he really does remind you of a Tony Stark, and it shows that how Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark gets all of his stuff. I'm wondering if Dominic Cooper probably studied Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark to get ideas for his character, and it works really well for him. So props to you, Mr. Cooper. All right, this is a relatively medium leveled video, which I'm proud of. I'm hoping to get these all to be around 15 minutes. And I'm gonna end the review here by giving it a D, which is really low for anyone who watches my stuff. I usually grade things pretty high, particularly the MCU because I'm biased. But I really just did not enjoy watching the show. I think that a lot of my reviews, when it comes down to rating things, it comes down to how much did I enjoy spending my time watching it. Because if you're gonna spend time watching something, I mean that's time. That's like actual time. This took me about 8 hours to get through because there's 8 hours of footage, and it just was not worth 8 hours. I mean, literally, 8 hours is 8 hours of work, and I get paid like I don't know, $13 an hour or something like that. And like that's a lot of money to be wasting to watch a movie or a show that you just generally didn't enjoy. And that is what I did here. Not a big fan of this show. Season 2 is better. Granted, not a whole lot better. You should still watch it if you're a diehard MCU fan. It is on Disney Plus, and it's got a lot of really cool Easter eggs that I do enjoy in this show. Anyway, make sure you join the Facebook group. It's down in the comments below. Join that, hit that add button, and join the group, and I'll go ahead right on there and be like, yes, join this group. And it's got all of my links to my videos, so you can find them easily. There's interactive polls, so that we can, if you want anything in particular, I can put lists on there, and people can vote on them. It's just stuff like that, and so I really hope that you do that. Make sure you subscribe, because I'm seeing that a lot of people watching my videos are not subscribed. And that is Depresso Espresso, because I'm only getting like 5 views in the first day, and like 3 of them are not from the United States. So they're not from the United States, and they're not subscribed. So you should really subscribe. I don't know why you're not subscribed. It makes me very sad. So it'd be really cool if you could just subscribe. Just hit, it's a red button right here underneath the video. If you hit the button that looks like a square, hit that button and then scroll down a little bit. Right there on the bottom right, there's a button that says subscribe. You just hit that button. There's also a like button. If you find that, you should touch that too. It's always very good to have likes. Well, that just about does it for me today. So just keep remembering to watch a lot of films, watch a lot of shows, educate yourself, and I will see you guys in the next video.